What is going on? How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's having a good day so far, and I hope everybody's had a good week so far because we're a little over halfway through the week, actually almost fully through the week. But anyway, we're here to talk about some BYU football because we have some new information on the transfer portal. And I posted a BYU transfer portal video a few days ago, and you guys showed me a tremendous amount of support. So all the BYU fans, I greatly appreciate you. Like it, I think that was the most support that I've gotten out of any video that I've posted in like the 3 weeks that I've launched this channel. So I greatly appreciate you guys over there, and plenty more coming, a lot more coming. I love this BYU football team. I love talking about this BYU football team. I think they have one of the brighter futures in college football. So this is definitely a team that's going to be focused on pretty heavily on this channel. So if you are a BYU fan, greatly appreciate it if you did consider subscribing to the channel. But before we get into some of the transfer portal talk, let me know in the comments what you are hoping for the Cougars in the transfer portal, and how are you feeling about the transfer portal so far? Like how are you thinking BYU is done? And also, you just hired a new defensive coordinator. Did just hire a new defensive coordinator. So video coming on that as well later this week probably. So stay tuned for that one. But hey, let's get straight into the transfer portal stuff. So as of today, it'll probably be the day after when you're watching this. BYU went out and landed I believe it's their first transfer portal commit of the cycle. And that is wide receiver from Oregon, Kyler Casper. Now, I'm a fan of this pickup for a few reasons. First off, when you get a guy from Oregon who was recruited from Oregon, it doesn't matter really what people say. He's got some type of hype to him. He is obviously good enough to get recruited by Oregon, so there's something there. Can you reach his full potential? We'll see. We'll see. I think that BYU's done a pretty good job at developing receivers. I think that BYU's done a great job with their offense and really maximizing receiver play. Like if you look at their offense and how they run it, their receivers get open a lot. Now, Kyler Casper is a little bit different from that, I think. He's a little bit different from the Chase Roberts and the Parker Kingstons and maybe the Puka Nakuas that you're used to. But Kyler Casper obviously comes to BYU because you're looking at guys like Puka Nakua. You're looking at guys like Chase Roberts. You're looking at guys how Parker Kingston has shown as much productivity as he has. BYU is a good school for receivers, no matter what people say. And I think Puka Nakua is like a very prime example of that. I mean, he's one of the better wide receivers in the entire NFL right now. So obviously BYU is going to be an attraction for receivers in the transfer portal, especially when you do have a young quarterback who is really an absolute stud in Bear Bachmeier, who also just announced his return. So that's awesome for BYU. I mean, we kind of figured he was coming back anyway, but there was some speculation as to a lot of teams being heavily interested in Bear. But he's back. He's announced he's back, and I'm super excited for that. He was my favorite quarterback in the country. I loved watching that kid last year. Excited for the future. I think he's going to keep getting better and better. But anyways, I got off topic a little bit. Back to Kyler Casper. So like I said, he's a little bit different than what you're used to. He's not the typical Parker Kingston or Chase Roberts or Puka Nakua, who's a smaller body receiver who is just going to get open. He's going to get very open. I think Kyler Casper, they're bringing him in for a different reason. Now, if you look at his height, he's 6'6". That's a big receiver, 6'6", 212. So what I'm thinking here, I could be wrong. What I'm thinking here is you have a young quarterback in Bear who has shown tremendous amounts of potential. And like I said, only going to get better as he learns this offense even more, gets more comfortable playing college football because he had a very impressive freshman year. Now, I think you just add some more dynamic receivers to this offense. What I mean by that is I think Kyler Casper is coming in to be that 50-50 jump ball guy. Maybe I'm just over-exaggerating his height, but a 6'6 receiver, you would have to think that he's going to be a big jump ball target. He's going to be a big red zone target for Bear Bachmeier. So when you're in the red zone, you can't punch in the run game. I could see Bear throwing up some lobs to Kyler Casper and him just going up and getting that 50-50 ball a lot. Or if you need a big play downfield, Bear could just throw it down to Kyler Casper if Parker Kingston isn't open on the inside. I think Kyler Casper is a super good pickup for BYU. I think he's going to fit this offense very well, especially with you losing Chase Roberts to the NFL draft. you do have that open spot at receiver. And I also think you have some freshmen coming in, like the Pula twins. I think they can make an impact real quick. I think Ty Nakua can make an impact real quick for BYU. They're they have a pretty loaded receiver room, a very underrated receiver room, in my opinion. And I think a lot of BYU fans would highly agree with that. And like I said, they really maximize the productivity out of their receivers. I love what Parker Kingston has done. I think bringing Parker Kingston back and really Parker Kingston going back instead of declaring for the draft, I think that is a massive move itself. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers in the entire country. He gets open almost more than anybody that I've seen. I think he's super, like one of those super quick, shifty guys you could always rely on him. And he's got good hands too. I think Parker Kingston's a great player, and I think Casper is going to fit very well right beside him. So you just add some more diversity to this offense. Now, if you do look at Casper's numbers, he averaged 25.5 yards per catch and only 2 catches. So that's saying something. That is saying something. Like I said, he had a 40-yard reception this year and an 11-yard reception this year. Like I said, I think he's going to be that deep ball guy. Just like I said, I think he's going to be that deep ball guy. I think he's going to be that red zone guy. So I think that Bear throwing to Casper is going to be huge, and you're probably going to see that a lot in this BYU offense this year if I did have to make an early prediction. Now, Oregon does have a pretty stacked receiver room, so obviously Casper didn't get to play too much over at Oregon, but man, I love this pickup for BYU. I think he could be one of the bigger sleepers at receiver in this cycle if you use him the right way, which I trust you to do. I trust BYU to use him the right way. Like I said, there's an ad. How do I close this out? I'm trying to show you the depth chart. But anyways, like I said, you're losing Parker Kingston. I think Kody Hagan's also going to be a guy who can come in and make an immediate impact. I mean, we saw a lot this year. You saw him break out some big plays this year. JoJo Phillips, another guy. But man, I think you're going to see a lot of receivers getting involved next year. I think Ty Nakua is going to be more involved, or Tay Nakua. I think, like I said, Kody Hagan. I think he's going to be that next Parker Kingston type of guy. I think that JoJo Phillips is going to get more involved next year because obviously he dealt with some injuries this year. Parker Kingston again. I think he has potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver, if I'm being honest. Now, enough of that one. On to the next one. That is Lyons Lafu. So, if you did watch my last video, I did mention Lyons Lafu. He had a 100% crystal ball to BYU. Seemed like he was going to BYU. I think the big holdout was kind of waiting to see who BYU brought in at defensive coordinator. And after they made a new defensive coordinator hire, Lafu did commit to Colorado, so he went to the other side of the Big 12 to play with Coach Prime. Now, I think this was a big miss by BYU, and I don't think it was BYU's fault. Like, it wasn't. I'm not saying it was BYU's fault, but I think this is a big miss for really both parties here. If I'm gonna be honest, I think that Lafu would have fit very well into the BYU system, and I think he really could have shined over at BYU. Now at Colorado, we haven't seen high level development over on the defensive side of the ball outside of maybe corners, and you really hadn't even seen much of that. And that's not a knock on Colorado at all. I'm just kind of talking about what I've seen out of Colorado, and I do believe that Lafu would have been a better fit at BYU, but I do think it is a good pickup for Colorado on the other hand. But I was really hoping that Lafu would have landed over at BYU. But unfortunately, the transfer portal will be the transfer portal, and it's very unpredictable at times. Now, another one that we're going to talk about, which seems predictable, but I'm pretty surprised we haven't seen an announcement yet, is Walker Lyons. So Walker Lyons, another guy with 100% crystal ball, and when he entered the portal out of USC, you kind of figured it was BYU or nothing. Now, I'm pretty shocked that he hasn't made an announcement yet. Like, I figured it would have been very quick. I figured this would have been one of those that was super quick. Now, he was very hyped up out of high school. A lot of teams did make pushes for him, and he does have potential to be one of the better, more dynamic tight ends in the entire country. Now, it wouldn't shock me if there were a lot of teams calling him up right now, offering big money. And BYU they very well could be stuck in a spot where they're having to compete with some of these other big schools. And I do think Walker Lyons is their top tight end target, and I think that BYU is probably still the leader in Walker Lyons recruitment if you factor in him being part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that when you also factor in Ryder Lyons coming in after his mission, then that's going to play a big part of it as well. And then you factor in you're losing Carson Ryan to the NFL draft. And you need a tight end, and Walker Lyons has the chance to step right in to BYU and start straight off the bat. Like, I think once he steps in to this program, he would pretty much be the starting tight end straight off the rip. And you have a good quarterback throwing to you in Bear Bachmeier, which if Walker Lyons does come over to BYU, I think you'll see him involved a lot. I think that you'll see the tight ends involved a lot more in this offense. I do think Walker Lyons, like I said, I think he has potential to be one of the better tight ends in the entire country. Now, this will be a huge pickup for BYU. I'm still expecting an announcement here pretty soon from him. I do think it's going to be BYU. But like I said, don't be shocked if there were some other big schools like Georgia or some others in the mix as well trying to pry him away from BYU. So that's one to keep an eye on is Walker Lyons. Now, another one that I do want to talk about, a very weird situation. This is just a full transfer portal kind of update video for BYU. So that is Dante Bell. So Dante Bell is a JUCO quarterback. He's one of the top JUCO quarterbacks in the country, I believe, from Mountain San Antonio College. I believe that's how you say it. But anyways, he made a post the other day on Instagram that he was committed to BYU. And then a lot of articles started to come out about him being committed to BYU. You look later and the post is gone off his Instagram and all the articles are deleted. So there is some weird stuff going around here. I do wonder why this is happening. I wonder if he either changed his mind. I wonder if it was miscommunication, whether maybe BYU didn't offer him and he thought they did and he committed. I don't know. Very weird situation. But definitely one to keep an eye on. Maybe it was just a premature announcement. I'm not sure. But this was more of to come in and kind of be the backup because you lost McKay Hillstead. So that you're probably going to be targeting a backup quarterback or another quarterback in the transfer portal just for that extra depth piece. So Dante Bell was the guy. He's a 6'5", 210 guy. So very tall. Built kind of like Bear Bachmeier. Well, Bear's a lot heavier, but you get the point. Just a bigger quarterback. Taller frame. But, yeah, that's very interesting. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that one as well. Now, another one is... Sorry, I keep getting these ad pop-ups. Is Utah transfer Smith Snowden. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and if so, I'm sorry. But BYU did host him on a visit 2 days ago. So that's something to keep an eye on. A lot of times when you see Utah Utes players transfer, they do come over to BYU. Like, I'm not saying all the time or the most of the time, but when you're from Utah, you went to Skyridge High School, you play at Utah, and you do enter the transfer portal, I do notice there's a big trend where Utah players like to stay home. Wouldn't surprise me if he did go across town and go to BYU. And like I said, they held a visit for him. I think Michigan's also in play here, like obviously because Kyle Whittingham's over there now. But BYU's definitely in play. Keep an eye on this one. If BYU can go out and pick him up, I think that's huge for the secondary. I think he could be a very good player for BYU. And I'm not really sure how this new defensive scheme is going to go. But if it's anything like how Jay Hill was coaching him, I think that Smith could be a very good pickup for BYU. So that's it. That's all we have for this video. That's all the news that we have so far. If you did enjoy this video, I greatly appreciate it. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel. Like I said, lots of BYU content coming. I love covering this team and love updating you with all the new BYU content and news coming out. So this is a new place for BYU news, I would say. So definitely consider giving me a chance if you did enjoy this video. And yeah, just stay tuned for more because we have a lot more coming for the BYU Cougars. So that's it for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Hope you guys have a good one.